Good evening to everybody. And for those who come regularly, you know this is the Northwood Hills Masjid and Community Centre. It is really a big community centre, mashallah, as well. And for those who are first-time comers, welcome. We are going to be talking this evening about a book launch that Sister Atia is doing, and she's going to explain more. I'm just going to do a brief introduction, but before that, I'll just give you a rundown of the evening. So Sister Atia will be talking between 7 and half 7. And then we have Shuala Abbas talking. Tayyiba Abbas. I beg your pardon. Sorry. Tayyiba Abbas talking between half 7 and 7:45. And then we will be taking some Q&A till 8 o'clock. And then there will be some light refreshments and a book opportunity to purchase the book and book signing by the author as well, as on all good book occasions, inshallah. I'm a medical doctor by training, but that doesn't really make any difference. But what I would like to say is that Alzheimer's or dementia generally, Alzheimer's is a form of dementia, it's the most common form, but it's a form of dementia is actually becoming much more topical. And I bet that everybody in the audience will either have a family member or a friend who's directly affected by this. And then when you start looking at the figures, over the age of 65, about 1 in 11 will be affected by Alzheimer's or dementia. And it's a worldwide problem. So as all Western mature economies are aging, this problem is becoming more prevalent as well. And Sister Atia, in her book, I've started to read it. I have to confess I've not read all of it, but it's actually a very moving account of a life lived with a loved one who then fades into the background. I think you describe it much more eloquently. But I was speaking to a neurology colleague the other day, people who deal with these type of medical problems. And he said the most frustrating thing is, Tarek, that people come and family members, or if I'm at a dinner party, they say, my so-and-so has got this, and what do I do? And they're so frustrated. But I say to them, look, you just have to give them love and look after them, because that mental side of things, you've lost them. And it is a loss before the actual final death and the physical loss, but there's a mental loss as well. So it's actually a very sad and something that can affect whole families. So it's a very, very important topic. And as we all grow older, there's a greater than 1 in 10 chance that one of us may be affected as well. Let's hope that there's cures around the corner. And physically, when you talk to neurologists, he says it's almost like having these plaques that are thrown into the brain that disturb the normal working of the brain. Well, that's as much as we know at the moment. So there's lots of work going on in trying to clear up this sludge, so to speak, to clarify the mind. But let's hope some breakthroughs are through. But anyway, that's enough from me. And I think I'd like to get Sister Atia to come up. Would you like to stay seated? I think that. Yeah, fine. Okay. So Sister Atia will then now talk about her book, her life, and her reflections on Alzheimer's, inshallah. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over. I'm sorry, we're sharing a mic. So no, this is just for the, yeah. So if you can manage, if you clip that on, so just closer, higher up. Yeah, that's be very good. And just do a, can you manage?
This is hard for me.
Oh, well done. Can you say something just to test? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be on all of you who are present here today, this evening. Thank you for being here. I did not expect to see so many faces, but alhamdulillah, a lot of them are faces that I know from long, long time, 40, 50 years. And it is so nice that we are all here at a place of prayer, community, and remembrance. And this honestly makes it such a deeply special moment for me. Thank you all for your support. Thank you to Northwood Masjid for hosting this event. Before I start, if you can, I'm going to I'll give you some instructions, and I'm sure you can do that easily. Okay. I would like everyone to stand up, please. If you can easily do it. Don't worry, can't. I'm not going to ask you to sit down if a family member has suffered from Alzheimer's. If a family member has suffered from Alzheimer's, please take a seat. You can sit down if a friend of yours has had Alzheimer's. Now you can sit down if a neighbor of yours has had Alzheimer's. And finally, you can sit down if you have heard the word Alzheimer's. Subhanallah. Do you know the stats are telling us in this room, including me, out of every 4 persons, one is going to get Alzheimer's in the next couple of years. And that is really scary. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from this. This book was not born from expertise or intention to become an author. Honestly, I tell you, never planned to write a book. I simply just wanted to understand what was happening to our lives when Alzheimer's slowly entered our home. And this book was born from love, from caregiving, and from walking through a journey I had never expected, the journey of Alzheimer's. At first, it felt like confusion, then loss, then grief for moments that had not yet fully disappeared. When memory begins to fade, you realize how much of life we take for granted. Recognition, conversation, shared history. Every action that I'm presenting while talking to you now is to do with my brain, my eyes, my tongue, my lips, my hands, my fingers, my sitting down here. And to be very honest, what is going on in my brain, none of you know. If anybody can tell me that they know what I'm thinking about, I shall be very proud of you. And so many faces here, I honestly cannot say what is going on in your mind. But alongside loss, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places lessons. And this evening is really about those lessons. This book is not only about loss, but what remains behind. Beyond the shadows of memory is not only about illness, it is about what happens to faith when certainty disappears. I call the introduction Navigating the Fog because Alzheimer's does not arrive suddenly. It slowly surrounds you until clarity becomes something you search for every day. But somewhere within that fog, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with His mercy, places unexpected gifts. Patience I didn't know I possessed, honestly. Gratitude for the smallest moments, and a deeper trust in Him when answers were no longer available. I would like to share a few passages from that opening chapter, Navigating the Fog. Despite his Alzheimer's mind, I was reminded that joy could still reach us in the strangest of moments. I remember one gray February day. We were out walking and passed a tree, drenched and drooping under the relentless drizzle. I remarked to my husband on how sorry it looked. My husband replied, "Why don't you give it a shot?" And I honestly laughed. And he started laughing too. And when I asked him why he was laughing, he said, "Because you're laughing." It was the first time in a long while that I saw that glint of playfulness in his eyes, a sparkle through the mist. There were other moments, quiet ones, strange ones, deeply human ones. Like the day when we visited Harrow Shopping Center after a hospital appointment. It was the middle of July. The rain poured endlessly. Our umbrellas flew in all directions. And I just asked, "Why is this bank open?" And Abdul Qayyum, with a cheeky smile, said, "It is Christmas." In the middle of July. And as if that explained everything. We both laughed. The absurdity of it, the timing, the rain, it all dissolved in one shared moment. It did not matter what had just come out of a tormenting neurology appointment in the clinic. But there were days when the fog thickened without warning, and it frightened me. A week after sharing our wedding photos, which my husband did not even recognize himself nor me. He did not accept me as his wife in the picture or in life. He did not know who I was. He had forgotten my name. He had forgotten who I was. And I just wanted to scream and cry. I was trembling. For what do you do to a man who held your hand for your life, for the decades, no longer sees you? That day, I knew I had entered a part of the sea I did not know how to sail. And this is hilarious, but this is serious too. And one evening, before his speech fully faded, he begged me to take him to Pakistan. Can anybody guess why? Not those who have read the book. He wanted to get married. And he was the only son out of the few that my mother in law had who married through his mother's choice. I reminded him gently that she had passed away. Tears rolled down his cheeks. I miss her so much. I told him we were married. Can you guess what he did? He said, "Really? To whom?" Can you imagine how painful that was? I wanted to scream, but instead I held it all in as the fog closed in again and he drifted further from the shore we once shared. These moments, both joyful and shattering, are all part of the same journey. Thank you for listening. Those moments were confusing at the time, but looking back, I now see them as the beginning of a spiritual journey I did not yet understand. People are asking me that I've kept it very quiet, that I wrote a book. To be very honest, as I mentioned, I had no intentions. When the 24 hours day became endless, never ending, I took to the pen and started to write. And very soon it turned into a messy journey. But poetry, being my strength, allowed me to express my pain on paper. And I shall read you a poem which came from watching memory fade while love remained unchanged. It's called Alzheimer's. 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 How cruel are you? Just unimaginable characteristics have you. Not only taken memory, but the whole person too. Never heard of you before. You have taken my husband's life, along with mine, like nothing else matters to you. You seem to have crept in with a vengeance, so slow and so cruel. How could you take his memory and sanity away, leaving him helpless to stay? My husband seems to be withering away. His brain all tangled today. With your cruelty and harshness, we somehow stay. Why did you knock at our door? I hate you more and more. What an intelligent man was he! A son, my husband, a father, a brother, a friend, a gardener, a DIY man, a living satnav, and a banker was he. A master of all trades. He was amazing and smashing. Not the same man today that I knew before you came his way. You Alzheimer's have robbed him of his relations and everything he used to be. It's absolutely shocking. In his own home, he does not know he owns it. You have left him to a very puzzled life, just to struggle and barely survive. His wife, children, grandchildren, he does not know anymore. What can I say about his relations and friends? He used to adore them, and though he loves them all. But unfortunately, they confuse him even more. You are responsible for his limited world. Television gives him hallucinations. Sunsets give him illusions. He feels worried with delusions. He's frightened and nervous. What have you done? No one understands me. The folks out there know nothing. He looks smart, so they bombard him with suggestions. I hate you, Alzheimer's, for your contributions. Retirement is to enjoy and relax, not to have tears and tears. But you have robbed me and my dear husband of our prime retirement years. I've heard they are after you, Alzheimer's, but that's going to be too late for him and me too. All I pray to God is to keep you away from me and all my loved ones. I hate you, Alzheimer's. I hate you. Wish you would go away. But lots of positives. On reflection, Alzheimer's taught me patience, sabr. And sabr is not waiting for difficulty to end. It is learning how to live meaningfully inside the difficulty. And those who have gone through it will know that there were times when I would sit and ask him to help me to change him or take his shoes off, soon realizing he didn't know the word shoes. He didn't know the word socks. He did not know the word lift your feet up. So I thought I was failing. Sabr, patience, became loving someone even when they no longer recognized you. And the last 2 years of his life, he did not speak. He acknowledged my salon greetings, but that was just by turning his head to say, I know you are here. So patient became loving someone even when they no longer recognize you, listened to you, or understood you, trusting Allah sees that loving example was when I visited him in the nursing home. He didn't know who I was. And people who don't understand Alzheimer's or diseases like that would often say to me, why are you visiting him every day? He does not even know you. And my answer was very simple, but I know him. And then came gratitude, shukr. It changed during the whole journey. It was not, it was no longer gratitude for big things, but for small mercies, like a moment of recognition from my husband, a shared smile, a peaceful day. Alhamdulillah. Tawakkul, trust. Alzheimer's removes control. And we all love control, don't we? We think we control our lives. We think we control this. We think we can control that. And I honestly, in my 42 years of marriage at that time, felt hopeless and helpless. And trust in Allah was the only way to release my outcomes to Him. Caring fully while accepting that I could not change. I could not change. And I'm honestly telling you, I could not do anything to change the situation. All I could do was like you would do with a baby. Feed them on time, take care of them, and make sure that they are comfortable. That was my timetable. And when memory started fading, reliance on Allah became clearer than ever. This book is ultimately a reminder that illness does not only test the patient, it transforms the caregiver. Please, can I see a show of hands of people who have been caregiving or are carers or are in the process? Subhanallah. And you know how it is. Whether you're caring for an elderly parent, your sibling, even your neighbor, just going and giving them food, or your husband. And carers do feel lonely. 24/7, they have got a job to do. And COVID did not make it easy. But I can't say it was COVID that was responsible, a carer's role. But one thing I can say, those who are carers, please respect them. Please take care of them. Because the person who has got the disease like Alzheimer's or dementia or any other disease, they may not know what is happening to them. But the carer needs a break. Visit the carer. Visit the patient. Why are you scared? Why are you scared of visiting the patient? The disease is not going to touch you. My husband was very lonely at the end. Especially, again, COVID was responsible. And we all know that social isolation is the biggest killer. Caring for someone with dignity, patience, and mercy is itself an act of worship. For any carers, it is hard, but caring with someone who has lost his memory and everything is just terrible as you watch them disappear. I pray that this book offers comfort to anyone walking through illness, caregiving, or loss, and reminds us that even in forgetting, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not forget us. It is a story about faith when life changes without permission, and about finding light even when memory fades. Jazakallah khair for listening and being such a wonderful audience. May Allah protect us all. Ameen. Is Tayyaba here?
Sister, can I take that? Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Jazakallah khair. Very moving. I think you'll find testimony of looking after a loved one through tragic circumstances, but also gaining a lesson and life's lesson and imparting that to the rest of us through the written word. This place is a community center, and it's very important that problems that affect the community we look for solutions, we provide help. We do have activities that cater for the elderly, and it's amazing how grateful they are. We think we're doing very little, but they're very grateful for the time they come and spend having basically just some light snacks and talking to each other. So I think it's very important that institutions like this welcome everyone. And we are looking, and please do contact us to organize events for all members of the community, Muslim and non-Muslim alike as well, because we think as a whole community, we can provide help to those who need it, to provide a place for, as Sister Athia said, loneliness is one of the biggest problems that affects the world, and has been identified as an illness by the WHO as well. So it's an increasing problem in all parts of the world. And it's very important to have social interaction, light physical exercise, and learn a new skill. So all these things play a part. But anyway, I'm going to stay with us. Zaria. Oh, okay. We have a totally different name on this. Okay. So Taiba Zaria will be then talking on behalf of the Alzheimer's Society and talking about Alzheimer's. And I'll pass over to her. So we'll have about 15 minutes. Then we have some Q&A. And then we will be breaking off for the sunset prayer Maghrib. And there'll be light refreshments as well and book signing afterwards. And the opportunity to purchase the book as well. Jazakallah khair. So I'll hand over to Taiba. So if you just clip that onto your cardigan there, yeah, just clip it on like that. Sorry.
Oh, that is hard.
That's wonderful. And then as the second part of the task, just clip that onto just slightly lower down.
On the same side.
Let's just keep our AV man happy. Just test the mic now.
Oh. Is that okay? Hello, can you hear me? No. No. Hello? Is that better?
No.
Okay. Assalamualaikum everybody. It's lovely to be here, and thank you to Sister Atia for inviting somebody from Alzheimer's Society to represent and talk a little bit about dementia and Alzheimer's disease, and just give you a bit of an understanding as to what it is and what some of the symptoms or challenges people may experience. My name is Theba, and I have been working with Alzheimer's Society for 8 years in different capacities. So my first role was a dementia advisor, and now I am a service manager. And one of the areas that I actually look after is Hillingdon. So I can talk a little bit about what there is in Hillingdon for people who are affected by dementia. I thought it would be helpful to start off with some statistics and some sort of facts around dementia. So 1 in 3 people born in the UK will be diagnosed with dementia in their lifetime. It's expected that at the moment there are 1.4 million people to be expected to be living with dementia by 2040. And people from Black, Asian and minority ethnic backgrounds, their rate of diagnosis is expected to really increase by 2051. And we expect there'll be approximately 172,000 people just from those communities that are affected by dementia. Dementia is the UK's biggest health and social care crisis, and we'll come on to that a little bit more later. So in the 15 minutes that we have, I'm going to try and put across 5 key messages that we believe are really important for people to know and understand about dementia. And the first key message is that dementia is not a natural part of aging. Just a quick question to the audience. What do you think I mean by that? Feel free to just shout out an answer. Yeah, it's not hereditary. Anything else? Yeah. Sorry, a couple of you spoke there. Yes. So essentially what we mean by that is dementia is not a natural part of aging. And so people who get older will not all go on to develop dementia, and not everybody who has dementia is what we consider to be older. So we know people, sadly, as young as their 20s and 30s that have developed dementia. That is likely a genetic factor at play, but aging is what we consider a risk factor. So again, not everybody who gets older will go on to develop dementia. So it's not a normal part of aging. It's not normal. The second key message I want everybody to try and take away from today is that dementia is caused by diseases of the brain. So in the same way that you may have heard of heart disease, have we heard of heart disease? Yeah. Have we heard of liver disease? Yeah. We've heard of lung disease, perhaps. So dementia is what we call disease of the brain. And I want you to imagine there's a hologram above my head. So I want you to picture above my head is literally, you can see my brain. And on my brain is wrapped thousands and thousands of fairy lights. You know the little string lights you put out in the garden and they make everything look quite nice. So I want you to imagine my brain is wrapped with all these fairy lights, and each light represents a skill, a function, or a memory that my brain is in control of. And unfortunately, when dementia comes and these diseases start to affect my fairy lights,
my lights will begin to flicker. So they will start to flash, when the bulb hasn't quite gone off, but it's starting to flicker. My lights may dim. So they may slowly, the brightness is it's just not as bright as it used to be, or my bulb may completely switch off. And unfortunately, once my bulb is switched off, there isn't anything that we can do to get that light bulb back on. What order this will happen in and how this will affect each person is different, and it's individual to each person. And we have a saying in our society to just highlight how differently dementia can impact each person, which is when you've met one person with dementia, you've only met one person with dementia. Even though you may meet two people with Alzheimer's disease, their symptoms and their behaviors may be very, very different. Which brings me on to my next point. Some of you may be thinking, well, what's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's disease? Put a hand up if you know the difference. Does anybody here know the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's? No. Oh, a few at the back. So it's one of our most frequently asked questions. It's one of our most popular question is, what is the difference? So I want you to imagine, again, above me, I'm holding an umbrella. And on my umbrella, it says dementia. Dementia is used to describe what we call symptoms. So sometimes it's an umbrella term, it's an umbrella term used to describe symptoms. And what we mean by symptoms are the characteristics, are the things that you might see when someone presents with dementia. So it might be that you notice that they are forgetful. Perhaps you notice that they are finding it difficult to remember names of people. Perhaps they are doing things in a different order. So a lot of these symptoms that we group as dementia is basically an umbrella term. In the same way that we might have cancer. So when we look at cancer, if somebody says to you, oh, I have cancer, does that tell you the type of cancer somebody has? No. So, and do we expect that somebody might have different treatment? So, for example, breast cancer and prostate cancer, do they have the same treatment? No, very different treatments, very different symptoms, and it's the same with dementia. So Alzheimer's disease is just one disease, one of the hundreds of diseases that can lead or that can cause the onset of dementia. And so there are, like I said, hundreds of diseases that can cause dementia, and I couldn't list them all to you. But the most common ones that you might hear of are Alzheimer's disease, we have vascular dementia, we have frontotemporal dementia, and we have something called Lewy bodies dementia. And they're usually the four most common that we see in people over the age of 65, but it's not limited to that. Our third key message is dementia is not just about losing your memory. So earlier I talked about our brain and the fairy lights in our brain. Can anyone tell me, what does our brain control? Everything. Absolutely, everything. And so if the brain becomes affected by disease, what's it going to affect? Everything, absolutely. So we have memory, which is sometimes the most frequent or common symptom, which may prompt somebody to go and see their GP or, get a further support or look into what's going on. But there are other symptoms which can sometimes be subtle and may often get missed. So some of those symptoms, or you may see them later in someone's journey. So we have language. Sometimes we know people who speak multiple languages may revert back to their mother tongue. Slower thinking. So perhaps somebody may need just a bit more time to think about what's been said and responding. Their vision. So being able to measure distance. It could be they now have hallucinations. It could be that patterns start looking like real objects or things that move. people's motor skills, so being able to use a knife and fork, picking up a cup of tea or a glass. Behavior and personality changes, so somebody who was maybe perhaps quite shy is now very outgoing, or vice versa. We have sequencing, so I remember I want to make a cup of tea, but maybe I make it in the wrong order. And those are just some of the other things that can be impacted by dementia. Our fourth key message is there is more to the person than the dementia. So in the same way that we hear of other conditions, for example, diabetes or cancer, as I mentioned earlier, we are able to see the person first, and we are able to, still speak to them, acknowledge them. And it's really important that when we see somebody with dementia, and I think you touched on it really nicely earlier, that especially as your husband was in his later stages, that there was lots of loneliness and people perhaps feeling like it's not as important to come and visit someone. And actually, from our research and from everything we know about the condition, we know that although people's memories may not be as strong, people's emotional memories and their feelings actually remain quite intact. And so whilst somebody may not be able to recognize you, they may recognize that you are a safe, trusted person, and they're still able to show positive and happy feelings. And equally, if they're upset, they may be able to show you that actually I'm not happy. And so hence why we say there's more to the person than the dementia. Some communication tips to make it easier to communicate with somebody as they're progressing through their diagnosis, through their dementia, might be to listen, speak slowly, speak at a sort of slower, reduced pace, give plenty of encouragement, and repeat back what you have heard to make sure it's correct. Reduce distractions. So if you're in a place where there's lots of noise, perhaps there's windows open or there's loud TVs, turn them off. Move the person to a quieter room. Speak at a slower pace. So speak, apologies. Speak clearly, calmly, using shorter sentences. Yes, please. Think about your body language. So maintain eye contact. Make sure your facial expression matches your message. You can use aids. So thank you so much. You can use aids, so visual clues. So for example, pictures. You can have objects. You can have so many creative ways of speaking to people without necessarily using language. What we do say is, though, if someone's dementia has progressed to a point where they are no longer able to speak, we can still connect with them by looking at old photos, smiling, even holding somebody's hand can offer a lot of meaning and connection. Whatever you do, never talk about people with dementia as if they are not there. People with dementia deserve to be treated with the same dignity and respect as anybody else. And our 5 key message is a little understanding makes a big difference. Dementia can be confusing, it can be isolating, and that's why it's really important that everyone learns more about it, the symptoms, the challenges, the misperceptions, so people with dementia and their carers, their loved ones, feel understood. Because as you said rightfully, it's not just the person living with dementia, it's often the people around the person who are the support network. And without them, actually, the person with dementia, wouldn't perhaps do as well. And so actually it comes down to their support network that really are able to keep somebody comfortable and living well for as long as possible. Everyone's experience of dementia is different, but with a little understanding, you can make the biggest difference. It could be as simple as waving to a neighbour or being patient in the shop queue. It's just about understanding and helping out where you can. Very quickly, often people ask about risk factors. And so often the things we say is whatever is recommended, what's good for your heart is good for your head. So doing regular physical activity is one of the best ways to reduce your risk of dementia. So there are two main types of physical activity. You have aerobic activity, which is strength building activity. And each type will keep you fit in different ways, and doing a combination of these, of course, will also not smoking if you are a smoker. Depression is a mental health condition as well that affects 1 in 5 people in the UK. And so people who have had periods of depression are most likely at a higher risk of developing dementia. Social isolation can also greatly increase a person's risk of dementia. So engaging in social activities and keeping connected within your community can help to build up your brain's ability to relieve stress and improve your mood. Certain health conditions, we know high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, are also linked specifically they're linked to vascular dementia. So it's important to make sure we manage this, have our health checks, maintain, a balanced diet. Vision as well is a recent piece of research that's come out. So uncorrected vision loss can increase a person's risk of developing dementia. So making sure that, especially as we're getting older, because we know it's a risk factor, making sure, we are getting our hearing, our eye check, dental check, all of that is really, really important. And to just finish off, I'll just recap the 5 key messages, which is dementia is not a natural part of aging. Dementia is caused by diseases of the brain. It's not just about losing your memory. There is more to the person than the dementia, and a little understanding makes a big difference. Thank you very much. It's quite hard to get.
Jazakallah khair. Very important background facts. You presumably have some contact details for the Alzheimer's Society, so
Yes.
we can make sure that people who may want to get those will get those at the end as well, inshallah. Yes, these services are important. We're going to now have 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A. Our roving mic is unfortunately in repair workshop, so shout out your question. I will repeat it for the purposes of the recording, and then we'll get an answer from all of the speakers on the table here. And then after that, we'll break up, as we said, for some light refreshments, book signing, and then the sunset prayer, Maghrib prayer will be happening as well. Okay, so any questions from the audience? Yep.
That was the question, like the memory taking, is it good to do IQs and to do new courses and stuff like that?
So before you answer, I'm just going to repeat the question just for the. So the question is really, and that's something I think they brought up as well, is keeping your brain engaged with different quizzes and IQ activities, is that important in preventing or helping prevent Alzheimer's or dementia generally?
Just hold it here. Yes. Those anything that's going to stimulate your mind, is generally considered very good and healthy for the brain. What we do say though, however, is that there isn't because we don't know the exact causes for a lot of the diseases that cause dementia. It's not a guarantee. So whilst those can reduce your risk and of course help, but we know, dementia doesn't discriminate. So there are people that are, who speak multiple languages or perhaps are very active who have still gone on to develop dementia, but that doesn't mean that that won't reduce your risk. But I have to sort of be cautious with how I answer, because it's not a guarantee. So whilst yes, we encourage doing things that are important, that are going to keep your mind active, is going to keep your brain stimulated, and also doing new things. So often, sometimes, especially perhaps in our communities, as women as well, you're often busy cooking, cleaning, doing all these things, and so you think, actually, I'm so active because I'm doing all these things, but sometimes we need to challenge our mind with new things. Yeah, absolutely. So perhaps a different game or a word search, or uh, meeting new people, writing new diaries. Absolutely, challenging your way in different, challenging your mind, sorry, in different ways is always going to be of benefit. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Yep.
Just a question. Did you keep journals during your caregiving, or was your book reading through reflection?
Just repeat the question. So the question is, did Sister Atia keep journals during the journey, or
Was it written as a reflection?
or written as a reflection? Did you keep contemporaneous journals at the time?
It's very interesting. The person who is asking the question was the one who actually encouraged me to write the book. But there's lots of reflection, if you can see in my book when you read it. But yes, I started with the poem that I read to you. One night, I just sat and jotted it down. And I could put the pen on the paper. It was, to be very honest, writing for me was a release, not more than anything else. It just gave me comfort, because I couldn't ring you up and say to you, I'm going through this and this is happening and that is happening and that is happening. So I used to write it down. And as I said earlier, it was a messy journal. And then when I started writing, of course, there was lots of reflection. And you know how it is. Sabr doesn't come straight away. It should, but sometimes it's the lessons that you learn in life that give you the sabr, that give you to learn the gratitude, the tawakkul, and that was it. And thank you very much. Thank you.
Before we go to the audience, I have a question for you, David. So Sister Atia touched on COVID, and I just wanted to know, was there an uptick in the incidence of dementia during COVID? Was that noticed afterwards? Anything in relation to COVID? Because of the loneliness that was imposed on a lot of people?
Yeah, so I'm sorry. It's a really good question, and to be honest, I think it's something that we're still trying to understand. COVID obviously meant that a lot of people weren't accessing their services, they weren't in their usual routines, which of course was very difficult for the people that already had a diagnosis. But there was already a I don't want to say a problem, but an issue around people who perhaps had symptoms but didn't have a diagnosis. And so actually during COVID, this had a sort of a more severe impact, because actually they were not actually able to see their GP. So often people who were perhaps symptomatic were having to wait a really, really long time in order to even just get a diagnosis. And at the moment, that NHS has a lot of waiting lists and things like that. So I don't think we're in a place at the moment where we've been able to fully capture and look back at that data. But I think from just our day-to-day work, there was definitely a negative impact. And we know that, ultimately care homes experience that the most, and majority of people in care homes are impacted by dementia. So that was noticeable. But, also I have to say that during COVID, so many communities also really did come together, and that's why these things are so important. Because whether it was online or whether it was just turning up at the door and knocking and waving and just making sure somebody was okay, a lot of people, especially in the South Asian and Muslim communities, they really came together. So yeah, I know that's not a straightforward answer, but yeah.
Any other questions? Yep.
You mentioned some of the summer and Northwood that you had to maintain your endurance and resilience throughout the day, the process. Are there any other examples, like the writing, things that you did to maintain your own endurance, your own well-being, your own resilience, spiritually, physically, emotionally, throughout that period?
So the young man is asking Sister Atia about the journey and developing sabr and what things or tricks and things along the way that you developed. Was it the writing or other activities that you did that helped you develop that sabr? And I think that's an important lesson for other carers as well.
Thank you. That's a super question. I honestly tell you, I did everything. And again, thanks to people in this room who encouraged me to join painting classes, crochet classes. The Harrow Carers group was superb. They helped me with all sorts of things, from visiting the library. I went on walks, I went on weddings, I did everything that I could. I paid for respite care to just fit in my walk. I don't know if it did help me or not. It must have, surely. But despite of doing everything, I was very ill on the third day of the funeral of my husband. I got sepsis. So you can see I did I read books. So writing was not only the escape, you know. I have always been walking since the age of 10. So that was my priority. Yoga. I learned a new skill, which was crochet, and I'm still doing that. So Alhamdulillah, keep your brains active. And I think because I was involved in so many things, I've continued with it. And it must have helped me. What do you say?
Absolutely,
Definitely.
absolutely.
Definitely. But when you are going through it, it is very. And then, of course, if you don't mind me mentioning, when COVID came, lots of things went. But I took my husband for a walk twice a day. If he couldn't walk because of the weather, I would literally put him in the car, which he used to find difficult to sit, and take him for drives. So my whole 24 hours was revolving around him, despite of me doing things. I read books. I recited the Quran. I called Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with every name that I could think of. And I think that was my strong point. So yes, as a carer, you really need to, I know you are a carer too, and as a carer, you really need to have that time for yourself. Just to take a deep breath, just to go into the next room and say, oh, please, I need help. I don't know what's coming next. And with Alzheimer's, it's even challenging because the person can't tell you, I'm hungry. So if you don't give them food for 3 days, they will not know. Honestly. So it's like a timetable, giving them water, giving them this, doing this. And in the midst of it, fitting everything from walks to television to books. So yes, I did loads and loads of things. Alhamdulillah, I was blessed. Alhamdulillah.
A brother there has a question. Yeah.
As our society, would you encourage if you're forgetting things to seek your GP with a memory test? Secondly, would you also recommend trying to get LPA?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
So the question's more about perhaps the early onset and just getting GP test and the LPA as well, which then David will explain.
Yes. Thank you. I just wanted to quickly add on from what you just touched on as well. With dementia, because often we can't see it, and because it affects people's memory and how they think, perhaps how they behave, we respond to it differently. So, for example, if somebody has, and again, I'm just going to use a diagnosis of cancer because it's easier for people to understand. If somebody has cancer, you expect there to be treatment, you expect there to be some clinical support, and you know, advocate, you will push for that, you will go to, you know, all your appointments, etc., and you don't necessarily bear the whole responsibility of that condition on yourself. And often with dementia, and this is not just down to individuals, it's because of our health and social care system as well, but often with dementia we tend to bear that whole responsibility on ourselves as a carer. And that's something that's really, really difficult. And one thing that I always encourage people is make sure to get out there and get help, get support. So whether that be through, like as you mentioned, carer centre, services like Alzheimer's Society, whatever is local to you, or even reaching out to your family and friends and having really brave conversations that actually, you know what I am experiencing is quite difficult. And you know, occasionally if you would check in, or if I can, you know, we can do something to just share the load, is not a bad thing. And actually I personally feel it's a sign of bravery, because actually you're showing your vulnerable self, and that's not easy. But that was just to add to your
We're
point.
just cognizant of the time.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry,
so the
to your question,
yeah,
yes.
question. So perhaps we all sometimes forget things, but if you're worried about your memory loss, do you go to GP and then the LPA question?
Yeah, so what I would say is that it is a normal part of aging that we become a little bit forgetful. So it's not that, oh, I'm forgetting things and you know I'm getting dementia and we should panic. No. It's when you feel, or if people around you start noticing that your memory or your behavior perhaps is impacting you on a day-to-day basis. So if you feel that that is the case, then we would always encourage you to go to the GP. Some people will say that their GP doesn't take them seriously, or the GP will say, no, you're fine, you're not old enough, maybe come back in a few years' time. We on our website have a checklist which you can use to help monitor some symptoms, and you can use that as a baseline. So, for example, you know, it's January and you complete the form, you can complete it again in 6 months' time to just compare. And if there is quite a difference, you can take that to your GP and say to them, look, I'm concerned it's more than just a little bit of forgetfulness. But the GP is always the starting point. We say if you have any difficulties with the GP, contact us. We have a helpline and we'll be able to point you in the right direction. With regards to LPA, and for those who don't know, that's something called lasting power of attorney. When somebody gets a diagnosis, it's something that we highly recommend you should get. There are two powers of attorney. There's one for finances and there's one for healthcare. My personal view is that everybody should have an LPA because we don't know what could happen to any of us at any time. And it just means that in the instance that something happens to somebody, whoever you have chosen to be your attorney is able to step and act in your behalf. But if you want a bit more information about that, I can speak to you separately.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair. I think we've reached the. Oh, one more. Okay, Dr. Hajar is lifetime experience in treating Alzheimer's patients.
What we did after a particular age, every patient had a mini mental health checkup and the major mental health checkup. Either by a GP or one of the partners, otherwise a nurse. This we have done. I don't know what's happening on the diagnosis.
Yeah.
So Dr. Hajar was just commenting on his own experience that a lot of people would get mini mental assessments either by him, his partners, or GP, or the practice nurse. But we don't know if that's still continuing. Probably not.
Unfortunately not. No.
You worked in better times though.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, so have we got time for right? Okay, quickly we'll go to here and then, yeah, please.
I wonder if Atia would be able to tell us, is there a difference between the grieving before someone passes and then the nature of the grief after the passing?
It's a very profound question, and people talk about the loss of the person before they actually physically depart. And sorry, John was asking Sister Althea if there's a difference in the grief before and after the final departure. I suspect it's not going to be a short answer.
What do I say and where do I start? The question is interesting. I think, as far as the patient with Alzheimer's or dementia can communicate with you, you manage. But once that is gone, you have already lost them. You've already lost them. And it's a different kind of grief. I cried every single day. Morning, afternoon, night, any time of the day. Any action that he did where I could not cope. So I was grieving. But people out don't understand. I mean, I didn't understand. I didn't even know the word Alzheimer's. Can you believe that? I didn't even know the word Alzheimer's. And grieving afterwards is absurd. For me, it was like I was very thankful to God that he was in peace, and so was I. So there is a difference. A person living in front of you and yet not there. And I think, as Tayyaba said, every case is unique. Every case is different. I hope I've answered your question.
I think we'll take Sister had a hand there.
How long did it take you to write the book? And was it a very difficult process? Because it must have been a bittersweet journey. Did the words, did they come easily?
So, how long did it take you to write the book? Obviously, a traumatic or bittersweet journey. And how long did it actually finally take you to write the book? And I think with that, we'll take that as the last question. I'm sorry, but if other people can then, we will have time to be with Sister Arthur and we can ask her questions directly. Just a couple of points. The men will be moving through that door for the refreshments and the prayers. The ladies will stay and then move to the back hall for the refreshments. And the book signing will be all in here. So I'm sorry, that's men that way, ladies that way, book signing here, and the prayers for the ladies will happen in this hall as well. So I'll let you answer that question, sister.
As I said to you, there was no intention to write a book or to publish it. But sitting now and reflecting on it, it took me 3 years. 3 years to write that book. And to be very honest, brothers and sisters, I still cry when I read the book. It did help me, and I thought it was a closure and a release, but I still can't comprehend what we had to go through. 3 long years. But my editor, Haneen, she was superb. She hadn't experienced Alzheimer's at all. But when she was helping me, I thought she knew my story. She knew my story. So believe it or not, I started writing. When I first of course, I'd done that poem and I had read it at the Dementia Cafe and I had shared it with close friends. But when I started writing the story, I was very naive. My husband was diagnosed And she said, no, 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 no. This book won't sell. You need to go back and tell me, when did you see him? When did you first meet him? Okay. So, that brought back all the memories. When I wrote that, I was told, no, 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 no. You have to go back to your childhood. Okay. So you see, I had to go back every time. But it was a painful journey, extremely painful journey to put it on paper. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you very much. And with that very moving testimony, we know it's a very difficult journey to lose a loved one, particularly in these circumstances as well. We also know that, Allah says that even the prick of a thorn, the pain of that will be recompensed by Him. And we can only imagine that the suffering that your husband and you both went through, and may Allah give you the highest abode in Jannah, give you sabr, inshallah. And this is something you are doing as a service to the community. And inshallah, this will bear fruit as well. And we hope to work with the Alzheimer's Foundation and other people, because there's obviously a growing need for this type of service to be able to talk and help each other and support each other. And I'd like to emphasize that this is for both Muslims and non-Muslims as well alike. This disease affects humanity, and we are here actually to help all of humanity, inshallah.
Brother, is Maulana going to announce the Dementia Cafe? Are you all announcing the Dementia Cafe?
The Dementia Cafe, Sister wants to know. So next month we will be having a Dementia Cafe. Can you tell? We call it a Wellbeing Cafe.
Yeah, Wellbeing Cafe.
Which date is that, Sister?
The first Saturday of the month.
Yeah, first Saturday?
First
So
Saturday.
first Saturday of the month, we have a general, every second Saturday of the month, we have a general elders social club, but the first Saturday. Between 10 in the morning and 12 midday, but the notices will be going out, inshallah, but that's the plan. And all are welcome. Jazakallah best.